Silence, all rise. The Supreme Court of Queensland is in session. Any person having business before the court, come forward, announce your presence and you will be heard. Please be seated.
President, I have the honour to present the Commission appointing me the Chief Justice of Queensland.
Let the Commission be read. Ms. Steele.
Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen of Australia and her other realms and territories, head of the Commonwealth. To our trustee and well-beloved Hon Bowskill, a judge of the Supreme Court of Queensland, greeting. Whereas Her Excellency the Governor in and over our state of Queensland in the Commonwealth of Australia, with the advice of the Executive Council of our said state, has seen fit to direct that you, Hon Bowskill, being a judge of the Supreme Court of our said state, shall be appointed as the Chief Justice of Queensland. Now know you that we, reposing full trust and confidence in your loyalty, learning, integrity and ability, do hereby, in pursuance of the Supreme Court of Queensland Act 1991 and in exercise of all powers and authorities enabling us on that behalf, appoint you to said Hon Bowskill, being a judge of the Supreme Court of our said state, to be the Chief Justice of Queensland on and from the 19th day of March 2022, to have, hold, exercise and enjoy the said office during good behaviour, together with all the rights, profits, powers, privileges and advantages thereunto belonging or appertaining. In testing whereof we have caused the public seal of our said state to be hereunto affixed. Witness our trusty and well-beloved Her Excellency the Honourable Dr. Jeanette Rosita Young, Public Service Medal, Governor in and over the state of Queensland and its dependencies in the Commonwealth of Australia, at Government House, Brisbane, the 23rd day of February, in the year of our Lord 2022, and the 71st year of our reign, by command. Entered on record by me in the Register of Patents, number 52, page 83, this 23rd day of February, AD 2022, Clerk of the Executive Council.
Chief Justice Bowskill, I invite you to take the oaths of allegiance and of office.
I, Helen Bowskill, do sincerely promise and swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II as lawful sovereign of Australia and to her heirs and successors according to law. And as Chief Justice of Queensland, I will at all times and in all things do equal justice to all persons and discharge the duties and responsibilities of the office according to law to the best of my knowledge and ability without fear, favour or affection. So help me God.
On behalf of the judges of the court, I welcome all of you who are present here today. I acknowledge with great pleasure the attendance of the Attorney General, the Solicitor General, Mr Nichols, the Shadow Attorney General, the President of the Bar, the President of the Law Society. I also acknowledge the presence of Chief Justice Kiefel, Chief Justice Quinlan, Chief Justice Alstergren, Chief Justice Bell, Chief Justice Keane, Justice Edelman, Justice Greenwood, Justice Rangier, Justice Thomas, Justice Hogan, Chief Judge Devereux, President Kingham, and the Chief Magistrate Judge Gardner. I also welcome the many judges and judicial officers of the District Court, the Magistrates Court, the Industrial Court, and the Federal Circuit and Family Court. Many other judges have conveyed their apologies for their inability to attend. These include Chief Justice Winkelman of New Zealand, Chief Justice Alsop of the Federal Court, Chief Justice Kourakis of South Australia, Chief Justice Grant of the Northern Territory, Chief Justice Ferguson of Victoria. Many former judges of the court are here this morning. I particularly welcome Mr. Paul de Jersey, who was not only our former Chief Justice, but also our former Governor, and who is our friend, and Ms. Kate Holmes, Her Honour's immediate predecessor. Many former judges of this court have conveyed their great regret at being unable to attend. In particular, former Justice Margaret Wilson has asked that her apology be noted. I welcome Mr. David Mackey and Ms. Jenny Lang, the Director General and the Deputy Director General, respectively, of the Department of Justice, Mr. Heaton, the Director of Prosecutions, and most importantly, I welcome Chief Justice Bowskill's family. Chief Justice Bowskill's husband, Mr. Peter Vallance, her daughters, Phoebe, Lucy, and Zoe, Chief Justice Bowskill's father, John Bowskill, the proudest man in Australia today, Chief Justice Bowskill's brother, Adrian, and his wife, Tess, and Her Honour's sister, Julia, who is attending by video link from England. Your Honours, ladies and gentlemen, although this is a day for celebration, the ceremony which we have just witnessed was not a mere formality. The judges take the trouble to assemble as a full bench. Every single Supreme Court judge is here today. And those of you present attend at the start of a busy day, not just to hear laudatory speeches. The law requires a new judge to make two promises. The first is the oath or affirmation of allegiance. This form of the promise, addressed to the Queen herself, has its origins in British history. But today, this ancient form of words constitutes, in substance, a promise of fidelity to the people of Queensland. The second promise is to do equal justice to all persons and to discharge the duties and the responsibilities of office according to law without fear, favour or affection. These solemn undertakings are the living roots of the rule of law. Fulfilment of these undertakings by a judge on a daily basis is one of the essential guarantees of the stability of our constitutional democracy. That is why, traditionally, it has been the practice of this court to require a new judge to take the oath or to make the affirmation of allegiance and of office before his or her colleagues, sitting as a united bench, as well as before the eyes of the legal profession and the broader Queensland community. The work of a judge to fulfil these promises can be hard. The hardships faced by a Chief Justice are much greater. A Chief Justice must fulfil all of the duties and functions of a judge, while at the same time carrying the unremitting burdens of the head of the judicial branch of government, all the while being conscious of being a role model for her colleagues and for the profession. A person of ordinary talents could not prevail in doing this. Chief Justice Bowskill is not a person of ordinary talents. She is a woman of rare character, of high intellect, and she is possessed of extraordinary gifts. Even so, the office of Chief Justice is so taxing that I think nobody could adequately satisfy its demands without the unsparing and open-handed support and counsel of all the judges. That is why the only really important thing that I have to say to you this morning, with complete accuracy and with unfeigned sincerity, is that Chief Justice Bowskill's appointment has the approval of every single one of the members of the court, and Her Honour has our confidence and our wholehearted support. And Her Honour has that confidence and support because of her qualities. I only wish to make one more observation. Sometimes the obvious has to be acknowledged. After the government announced its intention to appoint Justice Bowskill to be the new Chief Justice, I phoned her, and in the course of our conversation I asked her how old she was, and she told me, 52. Now I have it from the most reliable authority possible that one of her daughters, Her Honour's daughters, happened to overhear that end of the conversation, and after we had finished talking, she asked her mother, "Did he think you were too old for the job?" Which brings me to my observation. When I was admitted as a barrister, the judges of the court included men who had served in the armed forces in World War II, some of them in combat. This was the first post-war generation of Supreme Court judges. Later, their sons, their notional sons at any rate, became the judges before whom I and my peers also appeared. I myself, with some of my colleagues, became part of the third generation of post-war judges. As barristers, this third generation of lawyers, building upon the work of their predecessors, saw the evolution of new and more efficient ways of conducting litigation in personal injuries, in criminal work, and in commercial work. The appointment of Chief Justice Bowskill marks the ascendancy of the fourth post-World War II generation of judges. They are the institutional great-granddaughters and great-grandsons of that first post-war generation of judges. These judges will bring to bear a completely different perspective to judicial practice and to the shaping of the law. Just two things will demonstrate my point. First, these judges grew up fully cognizant of and habituated to the digital world in its social, its communication, and its economic spheres. They comfortably assume things that my generation had to learn, and sometimes with difficulty, and certainly not really mastered. The second point relates to something that Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg once said. She was asked whether, if 5 of the 9 judges on the US Supreme Court, a majority of them, were women, would she then be satisfied? And Her Honour said, no, she would not. She would be satisfied when 9 of the 9 judges were women. Now, of course, Her Honour's point was not that all judges should be women. It was that equality would be achieved when a full bench of female judges came to be regarded as unremarkable, in the same way as an all-male bench is unremarkable. We're not there yet, but there has been and will continue to be progress towards that end. And there was a time in very recent history when the Premier, the Deputy Premier, the Attorney General, the Chief Justice, the President of the Court of Appeal, the President of the Bar and the President of the Law Society were all women, and it did not make the front page of the Journal of Record in this state. Therefore, the shift in perspective that this new generation of judges will bring will be a large one, and I think it'll be a good one. The choice of a not too old for the job Chief Justice is, therefore, providential. Chief Justice Bowskill today begins what I believe will be an illustrious tenure. She takes it on at a propitious and seminal point of our history, and it gives me and the judges of the Supreme Court, every one of whom is here today, as I've said, great pleasure and confidence to see her assume the leadership of the court. Attorney General.
May it please the Court. Can I start by respectfully acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we gather today, the Turrbal and Yagara peoples, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. This area, traditionally known as Meanjin and now Brisbane, was a place where the Turrbal and Yagara peoples held ceremonies of celebration and welcome. So it's wonderful to continue in those traditions at today's swearing-in ceremony. Can I echo the acknowledgements made by His Honour, the President of the Court of Appeal, and extend my welcome to the judicial officers, representatives and members of the legal profession, and of course the family and friends of the Chief Justice here today. It is a privilege and a pleasure to be here today to congratulate Her Honour Justice Bowskill on her appointment as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Your Honour has had a distinguished career and has served with distinction as both a judge of this court and the District Court. And Your Honour has many attributes which make you eminently suitable for the role. Your intellect, integrity, and the civility and respect with which you conduct your court are well known and valued by those who appear before you. Your Honour has left an enduring impression upon all those with whom you have worked through what is already a stellar 25-year career in the law. Colleagues and peers at previous ceremonies in this court over the years have uniformly commented on Your Honour's warmth, generosity, compassion
and unquestionable skill. Your Honour has brought grace and a comprehensive understanding of law to the Supreme Court for the past 4 years and the District Court prior to that. As a barrister, Your Honour practiced widely in the areas of public, administrative and commercial law, where you earned enormous respect. Your Honour developed a special focus on native title law and has played a significant role in ensuring social justice for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples through your work. It is interesting to note that Your Honour has achieved this position of Chief Justice without seeking it, and I'm reminded of a statement Your Honour made at your Supreme Court appointment welcome ceremony, remarking that you had never harboured specific ambitions for your career. Your Honour simply tried to work hard at your craft and take advantage of whatever opportunities arose. Your Honour's most recent opportunity was your appointment as Senior Judge Administrator in August of last year. The position of Senior Judge Administrator requires considerable administrative acumen in addition to the highest of judicial standards. Your Honour assumed that role during a period of continuing challenge for the courts, responding to the unfolding pandemic across the community. And it is a tribute to Your Honour's work with the former Chief Justice, the Honourable Catherine Holmes AC, that the courts have continued to function well, delivering justice to Queensland, notwithstanding the many challenges. And we heard the praise that the former Chief Justice had for you in your role as Senior Judge Administrator just last week. As Chief Justice, our community can have the utmost confidence that Your Honour will continue your careful and responsible stewardship of the courts in our highest judicial office. In Your Honour's time on the Supreme Court bench, you have drawn attention to the welfare of judicial officers and legal professionals appearing before the courts. One of the many important contributions, with which I'm sure many of you here today will agree, was a presentation of the mental health issues facing the legal profession. Many people in our community are perhaps unaware of the enormous pressures, intellectual and emotional, faced by judicial officers who serve across all levels of the justice system and the legal professionals who appear at the bar table. They are often called upon to deal with traumatic material and people in acute distress, and their respective decisions will have far-reaching impacts on the parties involved and their families. Our developing understanding of vicarious trauma makes it vital that the courts understand these issues and find ways to effectively manage the mental health challenges they present. Your Honour spoke on this very important topic at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Crown Prosecutors Conference and to Queensland magistrates, presenting papers which are highly regarded and will no doubt benefit the broader administration of justice. It is fitting that on the coattails of Queensland's Women's Week, Your Honour should be welcomed as just Queensland's second female Chief Justice. And like your predecessor, Your Honour is an outstanding role model for all aspiring lawyers, and I'm sure you are a great role model for your 3 daughters, who are no doubt incredibly proud of their mum today. I note that Your Honour once remarked in this courtroom of harbouring a secret desire to be a jazz singer in a classy nightclub. Today, however, it is your peers who can't sing your praises highly enough. I am certain that Your Honour will excel in your new role. Your Honour is an outstanding judge, leader and individual, and Queensland is very fortunate to have you as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. May it please the Court.
Solicitor General. Mr. Sullivan.
May it please the Court. On behalf of the Bar Association of Queensland, it gives me great pleasure to congratulate you on the occasion of this welcome ceremony, Your Honour. Chief Justice Bowskill, I extend particular welcome to your husband, Peter Valance, your daughters, Phoebe, Lucy and Zoe, your father, John, your siblings and other members of your family and friends who join us here on this occasion. Your Honour would be the first to acknowledge the essential contribution that the support of your family has been throughout your career, leading ultimately to your appointment today. We welcome you as Queensland's 20th Chief Justice, becoming the second Chief Justice to have also served in the District Court, 33 years after the retirement of the former Chief Justice, Sir Dormer Andrews. It is a relatively rare occasion for a District Court judge to be elevated to the Supreme Court, and it is rarer still to become Chief Justice. This sui generis pathway to today's ceremony is a testament to your skill and the high standing you possess in this court. Today marks the third welcome ceremony within the span of 8 years, second only to Justice Edelman, who himself had 3 ceremonies in 6 years. I recall Your Honour referred to the focus on you in your second ceremony in the tradition of Oscar Wilde as careless. You will forgive the association from insisting that this third occasion is an indication itself of the importance of being earnest. You will have been a member of this court since 2017, which for the past year has also included the responsibilities of the Senior Judge Administrator. Together with Justice Anne Lyons before you, you have provided great support to the former Chief Justice in the important work performed during this COVID period. Prior to your work in this court, you served with distinction as a judge of the District Court, where, following your appointment in 2014, you also worked as a judge of the Children's Court and the Planning Environment Court. Of course, in another time, you stood at the other side of the bar table. In 1995, you graduated from the Queensland University of Technology with a Bachelor of Laws, achieving first-class honours and the award of the University Medal, all while studying part-time and balancing work as a secretary with a group of barristers, a group that included Justice Mullins. The pathway from Legal Secretary to Chief Justice may have been trod by one before you, but it does not make the achievement any less remarkable. In 1996, your career began as the Associate to Justice Drummond in the Federal Court before you were called to the bar in 1998. At the bar, you were one of the leading barristers in the areas of native title and in administrative law, appearing in many of the most important cases in those areas and becoming one of the most foremost representatives for various state governments, the Commonwealth Government, and for Indigenous Australians. In recognition of your excellence in those areas, you took silk in 2013. On the bench, Your Honour has discharged the duties and responsibilities of your office with a prevailing sense of dignity and fairness. For those who appear before you, in whatever capacity, all receive the same unfailing ethical treatment. As many members of the Association can attest, you consistently deliver timely and considered judgments. You serve as an example to all legal practitioners of the importance of diligence and impartiality. At the private bar and whilst on the bench, you have been a great contributor to the Association. Whether it be your appearance at conferences and CPD events hosted by the Association, your participation in the Indigenous Students Mentoring Scheme, or presenting during the bar practice course, you have always been exceedingly generous, sharing your time and experience with members of the Association. No doubt your calendar will now be consumed with the many responsibilities the head of jurisdiction assumes, but I thank you for your willingness to continue giving members of the Association your direct impressions. I very much look forward to your presentation on cultural diversity in trial processes during the Association's upcoming annual conference. The Bar Association of Queensland and its members gladly support your Honour's appointment as Chief Justice. On behalf of the Association, I wish you a long and successful term as Chief Justice, and again extend my congratulations to your husband and your children, each of whom can take great pride in your many achievements to date, as well as those to come. May it please the Court.
Ms Thompson.
May it please the Court. Well, what an amazing day to be President of the Queensland Law Society and a member of the legal profession. It is with immense joy and privilege that I'm here to formally welcome, on behalf of the Society and its members, the Solicitors of Queensland, a new era, a new generation and a new Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Queensland. Your Honour's friends, family, peers, colleagues and in particular children must be, and rightly so, extremely proud of you in this moment. Queenslanders who are faced by the most serious of issues turn to this court for fair, rational, predictable, consistent and impartial application of the law and resolution of disputes. The call to service as a Justice of the Supreme Court is one of great challenge. It requires the courage to do equal justice to all persons without fear, favour or affection. This challenge must be met even at times of high emotion, great controversy or relentless scrutiny and criticism. At your welcome ceremony to the Supreme Court, Your Honour said, "An important part of discharging my obligations as a judge is to ensure the people who come to the court, in whatever capacity, are treated with courtesy, dignity, fairness and efficiency according to law. To anyone who has appeared before you in this court or known you in your judicial role, Your Honour has lived up to that aspiration admirably. But now we call on you to do more as the leader of this honourable court. Leadership as the Chief Justice requires all the fortitude of a justice, but a further professional calling for public service, a dedication to the independent delivery of equal justice and a steadfast belief in the maintenance of public confidence in our judicial system. Indeed, hearing that, your children may well wonder whether your robes are in fact a superhero cape, and in some ways they are. Walking in the footsteps of previous justices, the ones trod by Griffith, de Jersey and Holmes, is to shoulder an additional heavy burden to work for the benefit of the courts, the legal profession and the Queenslanders we all serve. The leadership position of this court is a position of leadership for the entirety of the legal profession. The role of leader, of course, is never an easy one. It requires vision, empathy, pastoral care for those in our charge, and a desire to help others succeed. Members of the legal profession look to the Chief Justice as a role model of who we are and where we are headed. As only the second female Chief Justice in our state, Your Honour sets a strong example for our profession of the success of merit-based appointments and the vibrancy and vigour that diversity brings to any institution. The full members of the Queensland Law Society are 52% female and 30% Generation X. These are some powerful drivers of change we see in our world, and it is really fantastic to see that reflected in our courts. Your Honour is, and I have no doubt will continue to be, a role model for any young legal practitioner who tries to work hard at whatever they are doing and take advantage of opportunities as they arise, in much the same way that you did, and as Your Honour commented on, at the time of your appointment to the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Bowskill, you are ideally suited to this appointment. On your swearing in to the Supreme Court, our then President commended your intellectual tenacity, deftly woven with compassion and even-handed legal analysis. As a Justice of this honourable court, Your Honour has maintained your enviable reputation for the highest standard of application of the law, combined with a compassion and understanding of the frailties of the human condition. Accordingly, Your Honour is highly respected both as a judicial officer and a leader in the legal profession in Queensland. Our members have expressed genuine delight at your appointment and absolute confidence in the future of the courts. One member reported that Your Honour has always been successful in your career, highly regarded at the bar, and more than admirably discharging numerous judicial positions. Your Honour has worked hard to improve practices and efficiencies at the courts, and this is something we at the Society will continue to collaborate with you for the benefit of the profession, the community and access to justice. Your Honour has frequently engaged and consulted with the Queensland Law Society as a judge and in your role as Senior Judge Administrator. We have always appreciated your willingness to engage and collaborate, especially throughout the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Your Honour has deftly facilitated stakeholder meetings and assisted the former Chief Justice in keeping the wheels of justice turning in the most challenging of times. The Society is also particularly grateful to Your Honour for spearheading and being a champion for the Court's work to develop its technology and processes. Your collaborative approach on these matters has been much appreciated, and we're looking forward to developing that further over the coming years. As a highly respected jurist, Your Honour's judicial experience in the District Court, the Children's Court, the Planning and Environment Court, and most recently in the Supreme Court will be invaluable in leading the courts into a new era. I will not restate Your Honour's extensive qualifications, other than to say that your breadth of judicial experience, Your Honour's collaborative approach, and Your Honour's true regard and compassion for the most disadvantaged in our community makes you ideally suited to lead our Queensland courts. What I would like to touch on, perhaps on a personal note, is to acknowledge that we have not crossed paths until more recent times, although I, of course, admired you as a legal professional and judicial member from afar. On getting to know you, what has struck me is that you are a genuinely warm and engaging woman. You give freely of your time and are a person truly trying to do better and lead on the front foot. I am extremely optimistic about what your leadership will mean for the administration of justice in Queensland and what opportunities might be explored to assist in the education of the Society's membership and your role as a role model, particularly to our early career lawyers as they navigate the profession in what has been and may continue to be a truly challenging time for a while yet. Chief Justice Bowskill, you have the unwavering support of the Solicitors of Queensland and the Queensland Law Society. We wish you all the best in this new endeavour and meeting the challenges of your new role. I have supreme confidence that you will fulfil the role of Chief Justice admirably in every respect. We look forward to maintaining our close working relationship with the Court. My welcome and best wishes also extends to your family and children who will embark on this journey with you. No doubt they will be a source of immense support and strength for the years to come. May it please the Court.
Chief Justice.
Thank you. I acknowledge the many distinguished guests who are present here today or who are participating virtually, including current and retired judicial officers, as well as members of the legal profession, friends, family, ladies and gentlemen. I am so pleased to share today with you, and importantly, with all of my colleagues on this court being present, including Justice Mellifont, who in true COVID style sits as part of this bench by audiovisual link. Thank you, Justice Sofronoff, for your very generous words today. I'm overwhelmed by the support that you have given me. Less impressed by disclosing my age, but we'll discuss that later. I acknowledge the first and traditional owners of the land on which this court and the courts across Queensland stand, and I pay my respects to their elders, those who have spoken for this land in the past and who do so today. The Uluru Statement from the Heart calls for, amongst other things, truth-telling about our history. This acknowledgement is not a mere platitude, and its significance is not diminished by repetition. It is an important recognition of the truth of our shared history, affirmed by the High Court's decision in Mabo, which celebrates its 30th anniversary this year. It is a statement of reconciliation, inclusion and respect. Amongst the retired or semi-retired judges who are here, I thank the Honourable Paul de Jersey, former Chief Justice of this court and our most recent former Governor, for coming along. I'm also so pleased to have here the Honourable Doug Drummond, formerly Justice Drummond of the Federal Court, who was my judge when I was an associate. As surreal as this is for me, I imagine it is even more so for him. Also,
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
You won't believe that out the back I said I'm turning it off so that it doesn't do that, and it just did. That's really quite scary. Also, Justice Graham Hiley of the Northern Territory Supreme Court, from whom I learned so much from our many cases that we did together at the bar, particularly the strength of humility. The Honourable Kerry O'Brien, former Chief Judge of the District Court, I thank for his strong leadership and his kind and patient mentoring as I made the transition from barrister to judge. I also thank and acknowledge the Honourable Anne Lyons, former Senior Judge Administrator of this court, who is and was a role model in every sense of the words, one of the hardest working judges on this court, an administrator extraordinaire and a generous, kind and caring colleague and friend. And of course, the most important of the retired judges, who I think is hiding behind one of my daughters, and perhaps the one who is enjoying this the most because finally she does not have to give a speech, I pay tribute to our recently retired Chief Justice Catherine Holmes. She was a remarkable leader of this court, taking on the role at a challenging time, then only to have the COVID-19 pandemic land as a grenade into the midst of what should have been the calm days of her term. Chief Justice Holmes has led with quiet dignity, strength, warmth and integrity, as well as a very good measure of dry wit. As was said last Friday, she leaves very big shoes to fill, and all I can say is it's a good thing I love shoes. I can still recall the absolute thrill I felt when hearing the news of her appointment as Chief Justice. It was not only, but included, that she was the first woman to be so appointed, but much more than that. It was the fact that she was an intellectual, an exceptional lawyer and judge, as well as a down-to-earth and relatable person. It has been an honour to serve on this court under her leadership, and even more so for the last 6 months to work with her in my role as the Senior Judge Administrator. I thank Chief Justice Holmes for her wise advice, her support and encouragement. She leaves behind a very happy and collegiate court, which is a tribute to her. I will continue to do whatever I can to foster a strong sense of collegiality amongst the judges, magistrates and tribunal members of all the courts and tribunals in Queensland. As some of you may know, I did not have a direct path to legal studies from school. I had to apply for special consideration to get into QUT to study law because my school leaving results were affected by earlier failed attempts at studying because of mental health struggles. I'm lucky they let me in. Chief Justice Holmes spoke last Friday of the light bulb moment when she knew that she wanted to be an advocate. For me, it was not so much a moment, but a gradual awakening and realisation from the perspective of a secretary in barristers' chambers that this was something I wanted to do and, more importantly, was ready to work hard to achieve. But the idea that I would one day be a judge, let alone the Chief Justice, would have been incomprehensible to me. That life experience is perhaps part of the reason why I'm happy to be an advocate for and will continue to support efforts to improve the mental health and wellbeing of judicial officers, lawyers and law students. And I'm also delighted that present here today are Helen Phimister, who was the Senior Secretary in the second chambers I worked in, which was the chambers where Justice Mullins was, and Judge Terry Gardner. And I'm also delighted that Kathy Villari is here, who was then my partner in crime at the chambers I worked the longest in, which included Justice Freeburn, Justice Dalton, Peter Hastie and Doug Savage. Madam Attorney, thank you for the confidence you have shown in me by recommending this appointment. It is an absolute honour and a real privilege to have the opportunity to serve the people of Queensland in this important role. I am excited and enthusiastic about what lies ahead, and I look forward to our developing a close and productive working relationship. Mr. Sullivan and Ms. Thompson, thank you both very much for your kind and generous remarks. I will work hard to always deserve them. Amongst such success as I may have had, you could not count avoiding my own swearing-in ceremonies. Clearly, I am a total failure at that. And as Julie Steele kindly reminded me on Friday, I am a lot of work. The support of both the Bar Association and the Law Society and the barristers and the solicitors that you represent for the courts is greatly valued. In that regard, I borrow from the words of Chief Justice Bowskill on the occasion of his honours swearing-in July 1977, that the successful functioning of a court depends upon the cooperation of all its judges in working with one another as a whole bench. It requires, too, the participation of a strong profession concerned to make the court an efficient instrument of justice. It needs, as well, a skilled and experienced administrative staff. Chief Justice Holmes spoke last Friday of luck. We are lucky in Queensland to have all of these elements, although it is not so much good luck as good management. And speaking of good management, we are all so pleased to see Julie Steele returned to her role as Executive Director of the Supreme District and Land Court Service. No one more than me, as I am only too aware of the pivotal role she plays in the efficient functioning of the courts. One of the hallmarks of Julie Steele's leadership is the fact that she ensured there were two very able and skilled deputies to step in for her when that was needed, Darren Davies and Amanda O'Brien. We have worked closely together over the last 6 months, and I'm very grateful for their dedication and expertise. As Justice Jackson drew to my attention, this is not the first time a Chief Justice has been sworn in shortly after a major flood. In February 1893, there was the Great Flood of Brisbane. On 13 March 1893, Sir Samuel Griffith was sworn in as the third Chief Justice of Queensland. Unfortunately, there is no transcript of that ceremony available within our library. But there is this, from a gathering to thank fundraisers after the flood, at which the Lord Mayor of South Brisbane described the calamity as having brought people of all shades of opinion and of all nationalities together to work for the common good and in the cause of suffering humanity. That strength of community spirit is as true in 2022 as it was in 1893. The legal community represents only one part of the Queensland community, but the resilience, adaptability and shared effort that has been demonstrated amongst the judicial officers of all the courts and tribunals, the courts and tribunal staff at all levels and the legal profession throughout the many challenges of the last couple of years, compounded by the recent devastation of the floods, is a credit to all concerned. There are some silver linings that have emerged from the clouds of the last couple of years. One of those is the establishment of regular and direct lines of communication between the court and the profession, as well as the various agencies that we regularly deal with. I think it's fair to say that everyone involved has found those lines of communication to be productive and beneficial, even apart from COVID, and they will continue. Another silver lining is the flexibility that we now know we have in terms of how court proceedings can be conducted. But I would echo the observation made by Chief Justice Andrew Bell of the New South Wales Supreme Court on the occasion of His Honour's recent swearing in, that whilst the remote practice of law may be possible, it is far from desirable, and the administration of justice is best served in person in open court. Although we were able to make use of existing technology to great effect, there is still so much more required. The ability to electronically file and store court documents is an obvious example, as is an efficient and reliable electronic case management system. A great deal of work has been going into the development of this for QCAT and the Magistrates Court in the first instance, and with the other courts to follow. This is an essential development worthy of close attention and significant resources. The improvement of technology within the courts will also contribute to the ongoing effort to improve the efficiency of all court proceedings, but particularly civil proceedings, which is a matter that will continue to receive close attention from the court. Efficiency is not just about speed, it is also about cost, which is one of the real barriers to accessing justice which presently exists. The cost of professional legal services is approaching a level, if it has not already been reached, at which ordinary people cannot obtain them. Courts and tribunals at all levels are seeing the consequences of that in the significant rise of self-represented litigants. This is something that the whole of the profession should be concerned about and endeavour to address. The economic or financial barrier is just one. There are other barriers, cultural, linguistic and physical, that may prevent members of the community from readily having access to justice. And these things also are worthy of attention, effort and resources. I sincerely thank Janine Mitchell for all her hard work in organising today's ceremony, especially as she has had to do that so close on the heels of last Friday's ceremony and whilst she was grieving for the loss of a very happy working relationship with our former Chief Justice. I hope ours will be just as happy. I also thank Lynn Klein, who has worked for me for the short time I've been the Senior Judge Administrator, and before that, Liz Ballon, for their hard work and good company. And I also thank my associate, Lauren Dew, who I hope is coping as we leap from one end of level 16 to the other. As judges regularly acknowledge, working with our young, enthusiastic and clever associates is one of the highlights of this job, and Lauren is no exception. I'm very lucky to have always had a close and loving family and very good friends, and I thank them for sharing today with me also. My sister could not be here in person, but will be watching from her home in the UK. Our late mother is here in spirit. My father, I know, is proud, although he did comment of a recent picture of me in the newspaper that I didn't look very judicial. Too smiley, he said, compared to the stern image of a judge you expect. Well, you can only be who you are. To my husband, Pete, and my daughters, you know you are the source of my greatest pride, love and joy. Your humour and irreverence will ensure I am at no risk of judicial loftiness. Like many, the pandemic has seen us consume a lot more TV series than ever before. One of those was The Office. Some six or so months ago, I shared the news at the dinner table of my appointment as Senior Judge Administrator. An explanation was called for as to what that involved. Once given, the sage response from one of my daughters was, so you're like the assistant to the regional manager. A few weeks ago, there was another dinner table conversation at which I shared the news of my new job, and you can imagine the response. I am now the regional manager. What I actually am is one of a group of incredibly hardworking and dedicated judges who have collectively committed to serve the people of this state fearlessly and independently in the administration of equal justice for all according to law. I am so grateful to each of my colleagues for their support, encouragement, confidence and trust, which is wholly reciprocated by me in each of them. My excitement about taking on this important new role is tinged with a little anxiety, but that anxiety is alleviated by remembering that I do not do this alone, but with the support of and in collaboration with the might of the combined intellect, integrity and experience of all the judges of this court. I look forward to continuing to work hard alongside my colleagues in both divisions of the court, and we all look forward to congratulating the one of our number who must soon be appointed the Senior Judge Administrator. I have left them a draft of the next calendar, which gift they may not truly appreciate until after they have done one. Thank you all once again most sincerely for your participation in this ceremony today.
Please adjourn the court.
Silence, all right. The court is adjourned.